Hello, everyone. It is time to begin, and I'm Karen Rae with OptionVue Systems here in Chicago. It is colder than cold, at least for me, because I just got back from Phoenix. And before that, we were at the Las Vegas Traders Expo, and we had a great turnout. It was very exciting to meet existing customers as well as new prospective clients. And today is today is Thursday, December the 19th, and with Christmas right around the weekend corner, I wanted to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, give you greetings, and to let us all be thankful for all of our blessings and not lament what woulda, shoulda, coulda been, okay? So that is our kind of basic beginner greetings, and I also wanted to say that this is going to be a very, very basic beginner primer for basically trial package people who don't yet own the software. So I'm afraid this is going to be very, very redundant for most of the users who are on who already own OptionVue. So feel free to tune out if it gets, if it's too basic for you. But this we're going to just pretend that you've never seen OptionVue before and you are coming in for the very first time. So while we're waiting for a few more people to show up, I do want to kind of give you, I always want to do some little sage advice, give sage advice here. And there was a reading that I had gone through the night before last. It's called The Importance of Habit. And if you'll bear with me for this, I think it's very important to go over just a couple paragraphs here. This is the founder of one of the world's most successful companies who said, "The individual who wants to reach the top must appreciate the might and force of habit. He must be quick to break those habits that can break him and hasten to adopt those practices that will become the habits that help him achieve the success he desires. This is true in all of life. A dream becomes a reality as a result of your actions, and your actions are controlled mainly by your habits." I thought this was interesting. The world is saturated with intelligent, highly educated, extraordinarily skilled people, and that's basically our customer database, who experience ongoing frustration because of their lack of success. Millions of others spend their lives working hard, long hours, only to die broke. What's the solution? Ringer says, remember, life is nothing more than the sum total of many successful years. A successful year is nothing more than the sum total of many successful months, and so on. A successful week is nothing more than the sum of total of many successful days. That's why practicing successful habits day in and day out is the most certain way to win over the long term. You have to take a realistic look at yourself to know where your habits are taking you. If your habits don't line up with your dream, then you need to either change your habits or change your dream. If you want to hold on to your dream, then be prepared to change your habits, because a bad habit never goes away by itself. So I think the value here is to establish some very strong habits, some disciplines, and when I tell people who get into our mentoring courses, they ask what are the chances that I'm going to succeed at this? I go back and put it back to them saying, well, what are your habits? And if you can get into a habit of meeting regularly with your coaches, meeting regularly to do your homework, making an appointment with yourself to study, to learn, to do the homework, and then of course to actually do the trading and be successful at the trading will just occur if you've taken those baby steps. So during the course of this next 2014, let's start establishing, if we haven't already, some very good habits and do them each day, and then the sum total at the end of the year will be, of course, that we will look back and be able to say that we were successful for the year because we took the baby steps to be disciplined and to establish good habits. Okay, folks? So with that said, and with this as a beginner basic primer of OptionVue 7, I want to just show us, this is the very first program, the very first screen that shows up, and it's called the Quotes Display. I was explaining to a customer day before last that we have these brackets here. Do you see there's a bracket around asset specific? a bracket around all the account functions, and then a bracket around the Autoscan tools. And this is kind of how OptionVue is divided. So I started with the tools and then worked backwards. I started by saying that if you want to learn what OptionVue does, it has scanning features. Because one customer was asking me, well, what does that OptionVue, what is it designed to actually help you with? For beginning, starting option customers, they don't know necessarily what they want to trade. So that's where these Autoscan tools come in. There is OpScan, which scans globally for all market opportunities in real time across the board. We've actually set up some beginning formulas for you to pick and choose from. They come pre-programmed in the OptionVue program. And then you can begin to write your own formulas. Down here you would start a new formula and begin to pick out and choose some of your own parameters. And that would be a way to get started using OpScan in real time to globally search the entire marketplace for opportunities. So that's Autoscan tool number 1. Autoscan tool number 2 would be the survey feature. And this is for people who like or want to learn more about volatility trading. We can scan for implied volatility, all kinds of things, and implied volatility for the new people. It has to do with the volatility of the options, not the volatility or how much the stock fluctuates, but the volatility of the options and the fluctuations of the options. Statistical volatility, for those who are new, is what we call historical, not hysterical, but historical volatility, and that has to do with how much the stock itself bounces around or changes. The highs and lows of the stock price movements. So the database survey can scan for all kinds of opportunities with historical and implied volatility searches, and that would search in everything that's in OptionVue. And OptionVue has stock options, index options, commodity options, bond options, currency options, and all of those, I'm going to show you where they are in a minute, is what the survey scans off of, would be everything that's in the OptionVue program, in our database files, we call them. Okay, the third Autoscan tool is the Trade Finder. I'm going to get into Trade Finder very specifically with the asset that we're going to look at today, which is going to be Priceline down here. But I wanted to at least say this is for a beginner, you're going to want to use these tools to search and to scan, okay? Now, the reports and all the things that have to do with accounting have to do with the name of the account that you're in. When you get OptionVue, the account name is going to be sample. That doesn't mean that this is a sample and this is not the real program. What it means is the name that we gave the account is just for purposes of illustration. It's called sample. And you can click on info, because it's these 4 buttons, info, T-log, status, reports. You can click on info and actually set up a new account and give it any name you want right here. But you can have multiple accounts. There's all kinds of account names, and you can change the account. You can delete an account. You can password protect an account. And then all of the what I call vital statistics about the account are in each account, related to each account are here, the credit balance, debit balance, short stock, and so forth. And then also the commissions, the commission schedule for futures and for stock options and for stocks and for bonds are down here. So everything relating to setting up the account is right here in the info button, okay? And then the T-log has to do with all of the transactions. That's what T stands for, transaction log. All of the transactions that you have currently open in that account. And it's an itemized list, basically, that has a lot of helpful functions. It's very options oriented. Then the status of the account that you're in will give you the value of the account and all kinds of other additional information on that account. And under reports, there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different sub tabs that have to do with the the reporting of this account. So just in a nutshell, that's what that is all about. Then working backwards, these 3 buttons are the main 3 buttons you're going to use practically, I would say, almost every day. And they are what we call asset specific. An asset in OptionVue's terminology or definition is a file. So an asset could be any of these: gold, which is an ETF, GLD, SLV is an ETF. You've got all of these different Disney. Those are called files or assets in the OptionVue terminology. So you're going to be asset specific using these 3 buttons. If you do nothing else and all you do is buy OptionVue to use for asset specific functions, it would be for being in the matrix, using the price chart, and looking at the volatility chart, okay? So we've worked from left to right, kind of like reading Hebrew. I'm not Jewish, but I do know that that's how Hebrew works. And so we can go from global scanning, accounting, and then asset-specific functions. Now, another customer this week said, well, how do I put all of these files or assets in here automatically without having to type all of them? And there's the easiest way to do that I wanted to illustrate is to go to Edit and then Look Up, because this is where the entire background database or background files, asset files, are to be found. And they are listed in alphabetical order. So if I want to go see them, I would see them and just say I want to click wherever my mouse is back here. That's where I'm going to be adding a few of these files, okay? So let's just, for illustration points, say I want to look at Alcoa. So I'm going to highlight Alcoa, and he wanted 70 of these all at once, but I'm just going to show you a couple. Let's say Apple. So if I hit Apple without hitting the Control key, then it loses Alcoa. So I'm going to go back to Alcoa. Then I want to hit the Control key on my keyboard, and then I can hit Apple. Then I can scroll down here, find another one that I want. Let's say Abbott, and I've got my Control key down. See, so that's why I can use all of these, and they'll stay, so to speak. So they'll stick. Now I hit Insert, and they went right here. So that's where my mouse was. That's where they are right here. So do you see how to do that? Another way you can do it is if you want a block of them, you could say I want Abbott and I want these other 3. So I would hold the Shift key down, then select the group, the block, then hit Insert. I'm not going to insert them, but anyway, that's how you would do that, okay? So here's a list, and let's just see how many are in the entire list. We've right now, and we keep adding and deleting as these things become optionable or non-optionable. At this point, in our background data files, there are over 4,000 files or assets that we can pick from and choose from, all the way from stock options, commodity options, it says the type, bond options, and so forth, index options, commodity stock. And so we can pick from any of these and analyze. This is why OptionVue is so important, because it does have the entire universe of all options traded in the United States. It even has Australia, and we're adding hopefully some more as far as European assets in hopefully 2014. So this gives you an idea of how to add and delete from your initial list, okay? I wanted to point that out. The other thing is, before we do anything, and the importance of having good data, I have to stress, has to be covered. I have to discuss that, because if you don't have good data in OptionVue, then nothing else is going to happen. And all the option prices, all the strikes that get prices and update are coming from, initially, when you get the program, they're coming from this little place right here, which is our logo. And if you click on it, you're going to see where the continuous data source is. It's called QuoteView. QuoteView is our data service. We have servers in New York. We have about 12 massive servers that house all the data in real time for purposes of QuoteView and for purposes of OptionVue, which I've explained is the real-time global search mechanism. And you can see where that your account is enabled for various exchanges. By default, when you get the trial, all of the exchanges on the left are going to be enabled. You'll see check marks by these boxes on this column. These exchanges are futures exchanges, and they are something that you have to pay extra for. You can get them, though. They're about $75 per exchange. You can also see what server, we call it NetView, not QuoteView, but it's the same thing. We can see what server you're currently connected to here. If you're going to get data on more than one, as we say, asset at a time, then it might behoove you to use what we call this batch update file box. So this is where we would globally get more than one asset file's options as well as underlying stock or index or commodity prices updated. We would click on batch update and we would say all the asset files that we've got listed here, and we would say when, now, and then we would hit OK. So that way we're going to do some batch updating. Okay, so this would be very helpful for you, so you're not having to go one at a time and then the next one and then the next one and then get all the quotes. This is a batch update function. The other place you can see this very same information, and by the way, this little globe going around means that you're getting quotes. If you click on this, if you double click on this to suspend the quotes, which there is a purpose for suspending quotes that I can go over if you want me to later. But suspending quotes will temporarily suspend the data so that you can do some what-ifing and change some prices and things like that. But and then you can activate it again like that, or you can just double-click it and it reactivates. So the other place that you can batch update is when you go to NetView and then update asset files. That's the exact same thing as doing it the way I just showed you with the globe here. It's the same exact screen, update, but it also includes updating price chart files if you want to do that. And then you would say when, now, and you can also run an OptionVue report here too. So I would click Run OptionVue report and then say go, and it's going to update everything, all the asset files, all the price charts, and all the OptionVue formulas that you previously checkmarked. So that would be another way to just, bam, get it done. It's also, you know, easy to run it from here. And I'm going to save changes, no. But the other thing you can do is you can set it up in an agent. You can click the little agent button and start a new event. And I've got backup key files as a scheduled event. I can do the same thing that I would do here or at the NetView by going into Event and setting up what tasks I want OptionVue to perform automatically and put the frequency with which you want to run those events. And so I can update all kinds of things, open windows, asset files, just price charts, running just OptionVue reports, backing up key files, which I highly recommend because if something happens to your computer, bam, you're out of business. You didn't back up any files or assess accounts. You didn't print reports. You didn't do any of the things here. So I would definitely take advantage of the A for agent new event feature. I don't know if it's been there for years, but so many people don't even know about it, okay? So these little buttons are all very symbolic and significant in terms of what their features and functions are. We can discuss those later with you, but I hope that you kind of poked around and saw what some of those other features are as far as what you can do with that. Okay, now we're going to, let's say as a beginner, we know what the main buttons are here on the top. We did not cover these two buttons, so I'll cover these right now, and then we're going to start looking at Priceline because that's the asset that one of my clients wanted to kind of go through, so I'm going to use that as my sample or example today. Excuse me. Okay, these two buttons have to do with a probability calculator and a trade. The trade button is where you send the trade to an online broker. And we right now have the ability to track and trade directly with Track Data, our online broker partner in New York where our servers are housed. And shortly in the next upgrade, we will have the same order execution platform capability with Trade Monster in Chicago. So that is something you guys can look forward to, and use the trade button to actually perform and make a trade right from within the OptionVue software. It's a very exciting thing to look forward to. The probability button we're going to be using shortly in our calculation with Priceline, in our analysis of Priceline stock. And Priceline is, of course, a very high dollar stock that moves a lot and can fluctuate. Its volatility can fluctuate dramatically. And we want to use this probability calculator to get an idea with using Monte Carlo simulation to get an idea of what the probability is that the stock could actually be in certain ranges. So I'll be using that, showing you more directly. The other thing you can do is here, this is kind of for all the assets, you can browse. You can browse any of the asset-specific functions, matrix, price chart, volatility chart, and use the browse previous or the browse next, and it'll browse within the group that you're in, this being one of the groups based on a header. So I'll just show you how that works real quick. So if I want to look at the matrix for Priceline, I can click the button here. Then if I want to look at the next matrix, which would be the matrix underneath, which would be Facebook, I'm going to hit the next button. Now I'm in the Facebook matrix. And the next one, if I hit next, I should be in Tesla. So that's how you would very quickly, without having to close, open, an asset, you can browse through these all asset-specific functions. Browse next, and now I'm in the IWM. I can browse previous, so that would take me back to Tesla. Now let's try it with the price chart. So if I'm in a price chart, I'm in Tesla, I want to browse the next. That's the IWM. I want to browse the next price chart, and so on. If I want to browse the previously one, that's the previous one. And these are all, again, based on what group I'm in. And I can set up all kinds of groups, headers. I can go down and look at different pages. I can set up different pages in OptionVue. So if I want to look at the main page, I've got tabs. You can build tabs, delete tabs, all kinds of things. Okay, so that's kind of how you would use that browse feature. And then same thing with volatility charts. I can go to a volatility chart, browse the previous, browse the previous again. And then if you're at the top of a group, it browses down at the bottom then. It kind of rotates, in other words, around. All right, so now I would like to go ahead and show you, as if you were trying to analyze from the very, very beginning, you're wanting to analyze and look at and have OptionVue actually find a trade, because mostly beginners don't know what trades they want to make. And that's one reason we teach trades, and we teach back-tested strategies using the back trader. We developed, we've actually incorporated 14 years of back testing history, and we back tested a bunch of strategies to come up with the course material and curriculum that we teach in our Discover Options mentoring courses. So if you as a new person would like to learn more about and actually get into back-tested strategies without having to do all of the grunt work yourself, then you would want to definitely sign up for the mentoring courses. They are phenomenal, and I'll back them 150% or more, because they're just amazing courses that our mentors teach. We have 5 mentors, and they're all mentioned on the discoveroptions.com website. So we'll look at Priceline from the beginning. The first thing we want to do then is click the matrix button, or you can just double click right on the symbol, and that'll do the same thing. That'll open the matrix, which is the home base screen of the program. You can enlarge it, or you can hit the maximize screen here to maximize or to minimize it, or maybe normalize it, I should say. And this one customer was saying, well, what does all of this stuff mean? I don't understand what any of these headers mean. And it's obviously common not to understand it because you wouldn't know, but WKLY2 means weekly, and in 2 weeks, it's the second weekly. 23 days till expiration, that puts us at January the 11th for that expiration. The regular monthly is January 30th, which expires the third Friday of each month for stock options, so that would be January 18th. Then weekly, the fourth weekly, which is 37 days from now, expiring January 25th, and so on. And we can customize this. Like if I didn't want weeklies, I'm going to leave them in here, but if I didn't want weeklies, I could go to this button called Define, because this Define means what we're defining in the matrix. So Define, and then Auto Strike. Here's where extra things are defined. So we have right now included the weeklies. You can also include quarterlies and leaps, which are the long-term anticipation contracts that trade out, way out in the year 2015, some even into 16, coming up here around the corner. Then you can also customize the number of months that you want of regular listed options. So right now, by default, the program says 5 months, but I can actually even go up to 12 months. When you make any changes, you do want to hit the Apply button. So I can also manage how wide the strikes are, and that's called the in the money and the out of the money strike extent. That's the extent to which I want to look at how wide or narrow the strike list is, okay, for puts and for calls. And so that can be managed. I've set it on moderate because there's a lot of strikes out there and trading in Priceline right now because it's such a high price stock, trading at $11.91.58. So this is kind of your first glimpse at OptionVue, is looking at and understanding what you're seeing here and making sure that you get your prices. Make sure that little ball moon is going around the Earth. And that means that you're getting an update of prices in real time. Okay, so that's how the program comes by default. Now, if I don't want weeklies, like I said, you can take them out. You can go to Define and uncheck the weeklies box, and then they'll be out of here. But this particular gentleman wanted to look at weeklies. He's an avid weekly options trader, a trader of weekly options, I should say. And he's actually a little bit bearish on Priceline. So the first thing I said was, we want to look at the price chart because I want to see for myself and see if I think that Priceline is going to be slightly on the bearish side. So I can see here a price chart going back to November, and I can see all the way from 600 all the way on up. That was November of 2012, all the way up from 600 up to the current price of, when I click on it, I get the open, high, low, close, volume, and the SV and IV numbers and percentage rankings. So I can see all of this by clicking anywhere on the graph. That'll give a tabular format down below. So I can see that Priceline has really doubled in a year. And right now it kind of looks like it might be going into a sideways pattern. I have also invoked, by clicking this little button, I've invoked the statistical and the implied volatility, which I can look at V for volatility, display historical volatility averages down here. And I can see the 3, 6, 10-week, 1.5, 3-year, 4.5 year, and 6-year statistical, which is again on the stock movement or fluctuations, volatilities, and I can see the implied volatilities here listed tabularly. And again, I got that by clicking the little V button down here, okay? So I want to, kind of according to this client, I want to be slightly bearish. And the way you see this little box that I've already pre-set up, okay, I took a little bit of time because I didn't want to waste time during the webinar to set this box up. but it's invoked by hitting the Bullseye Target button. It says remove target, which I don't want to do if I click it again. But if I click it the first time, I invoke a box that I then can move around. I can click in the middle of it to activate the box, and then I can click on any one of the 4 sides to enlarge or shorten the box. The box represents my target, which is then listed here. This target is going to be used when I go to Trade Finder to find my trades in the very next scenario. So my price range right now that I've set up, I've preset this up based on my client's recommendation, was looking at a price range of 11.22 to 12.01, and then a date range, meaning he wants to be out of the trade by somewhere right after Christmas next week, between that time frame and January 1st. So I'm with the stock being at 11.90 right now, I'm thinking it could drop, or he's thinking it could drop from 11.90 down to 11.22, or as high as 12.01. So just slightly above where it is now. Now this is where once we set this information up, we can close this if we want to. We don't have to, but we can. And then I want to use the probability calculator next, because the probability calculator will read this information on the current price of the stock, the current stock's volatility, the any future date I type in. The first date that we had, of course, was December 27th. So now it's going to read with a Monte Carlo simulation. It's going to give me first, second, and third standard deviation ranges. And this is where, I know everybody hates math, but you have to like math in order to trade options, or you actually become math friendly because of especially standard deviations. And I love standard deviations because I enjoyed my statistics course at Purdue, and I aced it. That was one of the few math courses I did ace, but I loved knowing and learning about first standard deviation being a 68% probability of something occurring. And in this case, I can see that the probability of the stock going from its current price, $11.91, being in this range is 68% probable, that the range would be 11.66 to 12.16. And that encompasses what we call a first standard, or 68% probability of occurrence, first standard deviation range. Now, my second standard deviation is going to be broader. It's going to encompass a wider breadth of price. And that price is going to be between 11.42 and 12.42. So about a 100-point range, 95% of the time by mathematics second standard deviation definition. Then a third standard deviation, or even wider price range encompassing prices, are 11.19 to 12.68. So what? Almost a 150-point range. Now this is helpful, because this tells me that if I'm projecting a price to go somewhere, is it realistic or is it not realistic? And in this case, it is realistic, okay, to project that from the target, the bullseye target, that I think that the stock's going to be, a little bit lower, up to 12.10. So here's those two targets, 11.22. It was 12.01, sorry, not 12.10. 11.22 to 12.01. Those were the targets. Well, where did it pick this up from? And go back to that price chart, remember? And here's the 11.22 to 12.01. It picked it up from my bullseye target setting that I hit my bullseye on. So that's how all of this really dovetails and comes together. It's utilized. You don't have to retype anything. It's all drawing the information from one screen into the next screen, and then we're going to see how it pulls all of this information into the Trade Finder as well without me typing anything again. So I would encourage you guys to use your bullseye target, okay? Use these target settings. You can hand type stuff in too. It's not like you don't have like you can't do that. But this saves you time to use this bullseye target setting. So now let's finish talking about this section, and then we'll go into Trade Finder and actually find the trades, because as a new person using OptionVue, this is very important information to utilize to find the trades and then get the best of the best without wasting a bunch of time. So our first target and second target are in here, and this is, you don't find this too many other places, but this is probabilities of finishing below the lowest target of 1122, not very much because, you know, we're talking about standard deviations. The biggest number here is the probability of finishing between the two targets, and that's 65%. That's a high probability that our price is going to be somewhere between these two numbers, 1122 and 1201, barring any, you know, unforeseen circumstances, news, you know, Ponzi scheme, anything that's kind of a weird situation. The probability of ever touching the highest target, meaning 1201, is high also. It's 56.5%. And the probability of finishing above 1201 is also pretty good, 34.7%. So it's not necessarily truly a bearish scenario here because of the probabilities telling us otherwise. But that's what we want to look at. We want to understand these percentages and see how we're going to put them to use when we actually go to make the trade. We're going to now close this window. We don't have to, but we're going to close the window. And we can leave the price chart open, or we don't have to. I'll go ahead for right now and close it. That takes me back to that home base screen of the matrix. Now we're going to go back to, we're going to look at Trade Finder, because this is where the rubber hits the road in terms of getting some really good ideas of what trades to make. There are 5 tabs in Trade Finder. I want to go through each tab, and you will practically every time, because you want to make sure that you got your setup done properly, and then you hit go. But before you hit go, you always look at how you want these to rank. And there are 7 different ranking ways to rank the results once you get the results after hitting go. So let's start by looking at assets. We're looking at just one asset today. So I selected assets, and then I hit the second little button here. When I hover over these little buttons, I will get a little pop-up that says copy currently selected asset. And that's coming from the quotes display, because I highlighted Priceline on the quotes display. So if I hit that button, PCLN fills in. If I hit some of these other buttons, then I would copy all the assets from the currently selected group. For example, I could do that, but I don't want to do that right now. So go back to this one. Now, there's all kinds of other things here, but for now, we'll skip to targets, because this is where the beauty of the target, Bullseye Target, comes in. I don't have to type anything in. So I've got target type set up. There's a price range of 1122 to 1201. Remember, that's reading from the Bullseye Target, also came from the probability calculator. And then projection, which is the projected date we want to be out of the trade by, is, in this case, a range. I actually prefer date, because I want to be out, say, by an expiration or the 2 days before an expiration. But this client wanted me to look at the date range of December 27th until January 6th. And somewhere in that time frame, we want to be out of the trade by then, okay? Now to strategies. And this is where you got a lot of flexibility in what strategies you can set up, including leaps. This customer wanted to just look at puts, but I want to change that slightly and look at both calls and puts in my strategy selection. And then you can deselect all, select all, or select all covered. I actually selected all covered, but then I took some of them out that were up here having to do with just the stock. So now my strategies are including long options, vertical debit, which is DB in the program. That's explained with DB. Vertical is VRT. So vertical debit, which means we got a buy and sell in the same month. Vertical means it's in the same month. Horizontal would mean we're in 2 different months across the board, maybe a front month and then a back month. So I've got vertical credit, debit spreads, back spreads, horizontal, which is a calendar or 2 different months, debit spread, diagonal, which is in also 2 different months, long straddles, strangles, butterfly, condor, vertical, credit spread, and short butterfly. Then I went to goals, and I chose how much capital I want to work with. Not how much capital is in my total account, but how much capital I want OptionVue to use just for this trade selection. So it's going to be a smaller number than the total in your account, of course. Then my comparison basis, I can compare profit and loss, yield, or annual yield. I chose profit and loss because I like to see dollars in terms of return. And straddles and strangles, I've got those coming up in equal ratios, buying and selling puts and calls in 1-to-1 ratios. So buy 5, sell 5, buy 10, sell 10, and so on. This is very interesting, and most people don't even know it's here because it's ungrayed, but you can actually include an existing position in your analysis. And most people are like, oh my gosh, really? On an existing trade, OptionVue can recommend a follow-up or something as I can adjust, an adjustment to my trade? I'm like, yeah, right here, just check mark this box and give it more trading capital. You have to, in that case, include the existing capital and the potential for what you want to use, so it would be a higher number. You can also scale recommended trades to help an existing position become delta neutral at the current price of the underlying. So there again, you can use and have OptionVue give you a delta neutral recommendation on an existing position, and these should be used, man. Take advantage of these things. These are really very valuable features that no other brokerage platform has and no other option software has. And that's one reason after 30 years we are still recognized as #1. In fact, I had a guy, I got to tell you this morning, Roswell, and he called and he said, and his son called and they said, you know what, we were on another platform and it doesn't do anything like what you guys have. We're back. And they were just gone for a month. They let their existing subscriptions lapse. They've been customers for years and years, and they thought that they had found something that, even though it was free, they thought it was better. And he said, nope, those deltas weren't computing right. The graphic analysis wasn't the same. You guys have what it takes, and we want it back. So it's like, yay, we got our long-term client back because we know that these models work. And when I go to tell somebody that says, oh, I can get this free somewhere else, no, you really can't. In fact, I was talking about a shift in volatility taken into account in the Greek calculations. And he said, oh my gosh, you take volatility shifts into account with your Greeks? And I said, yeah. And he goes, that's what I want. And no other software does that. No other free platform does it or anything. So keep these things in mind, folks, because these are very important things to recognize the variances of difference that set us apart from the free stuff. Now on to filters. Option filters, these all have to do with the option prices, the minimum days to sell, the minimum days to buy, the maximum days to da-da-da-da-da. So you can actually type in any of these things that have to do with the option price, not the stock price, but the option price. The only thing right now I've got by default is that the open interest in the option is greater than or equal to 1 because I want something that has some liquidity, that's got some trading already going on with it. And that's why that's there. So once these tabs are all set up, and I'm going to rank the results based on expected return, ER, not emergency room, but expected return, then I'm going to go ahead and hit go. And I did this already because I wanted to save some time. And this is with data coming in, like 15 minutes before we started. Now, let's scroll down. I get a total of 50 different trades. And these are all ranked according to expected return. I can rank according to worst case return, which would be WCR. I can just click that, and all of a sudden now my ranking is all the trades re-ranked according to worst case return, which is kind of a very conservative way to rank. Then best case return is BCR, best case return. You'll see that the top numbers are here, and then they go lower because we're ranking according to best case return. Probability of profit, which is ranked in percentages, What's my probability that this trade will be profitable, a first standard deviation of the time? So 88% is at the highest trade that we get, which is a vertical credit spread. We're looking at a January 1340 call to buy one of those, and at the same time sell one of the January 2014 1300 call, and it gives the price we're buying and selling at, the net price of the spread, and then your results, worst case, expected return, best case, and then we can get into these other things later, standard deviation, probability, profit, and ratio. So the other three ways of ranking are ratio of best case return to worst case return, ratio of expected return to worst case return, and a ratio of expected return over standard deviation, which is not just a simple math division. It's actually a very complicated formula related to the ratio is actually related to the highest expected return relative to the lowest standard deviation. And so there are some really good ways to show results here. Let's try expected return again. I've got expected return. Now I'm coming up, instead of with a credit spread, I'm coming up with a butterfly. And a butterfly has three legs. So we've got leg 1 and 3 here, and leg 2, which is the middle leg, here. And we're buying 2, selling 4, buying 2. So that's our butterfly formation. And our expected return on this is $2,304, one standard deviation of the time. So I'm going to highlight this, and now at this point we've got three choices. We can analyze the trade graphically, we can send the trade to the matrix, or we can keep adding trades to the matrix and kind of get conglomerate trades going, which is not really typical, but it's there if you want to use it. I'm going to analyze the position. And now that I can see, I can get a graphic picture of the trade, and I can see by default 3 timelines. I can actually bump this up to 5 timelines or bump it down to just 1 timeline, being expiration. Here again, this is something that sets us apart, is the ability not just to put 5 timelines in here, but also I can right-click on one of these areas here and actually change which timelines. These are just the 5 default timelines, but I can actually put any date in here that I would like to analyze. They're not set up in stone like I've seen in some of the other programs or on the free stuff that you get. So you can type in any date that you want to analyze to, and change that here by right-clicking here in this field. So right now I'm going to go back to 3 timelines. I've got today, halfway between today and expiration, which is the default when you have 3 timelines, and then T plus 18 is the actual expiration. If I want to just highlight T plus 18, then all the results that are underneath the horizontal axis have to do with expiration only, okay? So I don't have to go down to just one day to see what's below the horizontal axis. In other words, I can see any 5 timelines, but then click on T plus 18. Then the results that are listed are for expiration only. If I type on T plus 14, all those numbers change, and I can see, you know, if I got out of the trade at today plus 14 days from now, what's going to happen. And so the gray shaded area represents that bullseye target range. Once again, I didn't type this in, I didn't set it up. It was all preset based on that bullseye target that was in my price chart. So with all of that in mind, I can see this butterfly is making me a really nice trade, a nice return rather, and I can move my vertical wand, which this is a really handy thing that you can move around and utilize. When I just grab it down at the bottom, left click and grab, left click and slide. So I've grabbed it first by left clicking, and then I slide back and forth with my mouse. Okay, so anywhere that I want to stop, let's say right in the middle here, I can see my axis says I'm stopped on 1140. What if the price goes to 1140 by expiration? my profit is $4,507, and that takes slippage and commissions into account because I've set those up in the program, in my account, okay? So, and then my delta, gamma, theta, and vega are all listed based on the fact that I'm long 2, short 4, and long 2, and that's my butterfly. So do you see a little bit about this graphic picture and how valuable this information is? You can see it easily at a glance, and the break-evens are also listed right here. This little purple line, those are the break-evens. So the break-even where it goes below 0, this is 0. So anything in this area is all underwater, below 0 types of, we're in loss territory here. So this these purple lines represent where the stock is when I start to lose money, break even, and then go below 0. So 1084 to 1185, okay? Now, here is these little fuchsia and turquoise bars represent my first standard deviation range, which comes from, again, knowing that probability calculator. They relate. First standard deviation, right here, 1166 to 1216. So that's 1166, 1216. So this is that's first standard. This is second standard deviation is my turquoise. So I'm well within my first standard as well as my second standard deviation in terms of my target that I had kind of predetermined with this client when we were working earlier on it this week. Okay. Now let's go back to Trade Finder. I'm going to just, for the heck of it, I don't even know, I haven't done this in advance, but I'm going to just say, look at probability profit. I'm going to pick whatever that top trade is because it has the highest probability of profit. And that's that vertical credit spread where I'm buying one January 1340 call. I'm selling one January 1300 call. Now let's analyze that one. And let's drop it down to 3 timelines, or maybe even just 1 or 2. And I can see a kind of, this is, of course, looking better if we're really, truly bearish because I'm making a profit, a nice profit here. Anywhere along the line here, I can see my profit would be very small, though, but my probability of making a profit is very high. See, that's the difference when you're using probability of profit as your ranking, then sometimes your returns aren't going to be very high, but your probability of getting a good, a nominal return is really high. Now, if I want, I can actually superimpose and get the first butterfly trade, which is this one, remember, versus that credit spread. Okay, and I can see that the return on the butterfly is much, much higher. Let's just go down to 1 timeline, and we're looking at expiration now. So anyway, this to me is very convincing. You can see, well, okay, this has much more risk on the downside than the credit spread. So this is where then your subjective opinion and your experience as a trader comes in, where you then make the determination of which trade you want to place. Okay, so you can superimpose as many different trades and rank them any way you want, pick them out. Let's pick this one and analyze number 4 and superimpose the other 2 over it so we can overlay till we're blue in the face and get ideas and look at the risk on the downside, the profit on the upside, and then finally choose and make a decision. And that's what I want to do as our last resort here, or last task for today would be to pick that butterfly. I'm going to actually send that now to the matrix because I would like to go ahead and make that trade. And this is the easy way to make the trade. The trade is in here, and the way I know it's in here is several ways, but the main way is that these numbers have all filled in down here. The cash flow, the delta, and so on are all filled in, and then I can actually visibly see the trade too because I've got it set up to look at the trade column with my legend, which I can click on and off, and I can kind of see this trade by scrolling here somewhere and finding it. And I can, by the way, I can see, I can pull the sections down and see more of the calls or more of the puts as well. Let's go back and see this one. Okay, so this was the put, and this was a put butterfly. Okay, so I want to see more of the puts than I do the calls. So I want to scroll that up, and then I can see the trade. The trade is over here, the trade column, and it is here, trust me. There's a 4. Okay, I saw the 4, and there's the 2. And the other 4 has got to be here somewhere. Anyway, it's here, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the easy way now to convert this trade, and we're going to assume that we did this trade just for the heck of it. And we're going to hit the Convert Trades button right now, because this is going to convert the trade and make it actually go into the T-log without me typing anything. So now it's become an existing position, and let's go check it out in the T-log. So we just made this trade automatically with absolutely no typing involved. I bought 2, sold 4, bought 2, and the prices that I bought and sold at, and what they were, the price line weeklies, etc. The volatility, the implied volatility of each of the puts is itemized and listed as well. And anytime you've got a trade with the same date and same timestamp, they are going to be considered together. They're going to be glued together, as in this case, OptionVue knows it's a butterfly. So it's a very intuitive record-keeping program, and I think you'll really enjoy the benefits of using it. So let me just think if there was anything else here. We've kind of covered from the beginning, showing you the main buttons and what they're used for. We've gone over edit lookup and how to add stocks. We've talked about real-time data in making sure that you have prices coming in, and how you would use every day. You're going to be using the matrix, the price chart, and the volatility chart as your asset-specific buttons. If you use nothing else, you'll use these 3. We showed a little bit about define. We didn't really get into model or format, but we showed the legend toggle on and off. We showed the convert trades, and we showed the analyze quite a bit. So I did not show expire options or the spread window, but we can save that for another time. Hopefully, if you guys have any questions, why don't you, since we're out of time now, why don't you go ahead and email me, Karen@OptionVue.com. And also, if you email me, I will send you, since you listened to the bitter end, I will send you a 24-minute video on Steve Lentz actually making a real trade by using the superimpose feature I showed you. He found the best trade, he made a trade, and he actually placed that trade by using the trade button, which is the button that makes the trade into track data and soon to be Trade Monster. And this is the best video I've ever seen in the shortest amount of time, 24 minutes, that Steve has ever done, and he's been with us for 15 years. So email me with a question. I'll email you with the 24-minute video from Steve Lentz. And again, have a really Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and let's talk again really soon, folks. Okay? Hope you enjoyed this webinar. And this is Karen Rae signing off. Thank you. Thanks, Mickey, for the thank you. I appreciate it. Hope you got a lot out of the session, and send me an email, okay, with any question. We'd really appreciate it. Okay, bye-bye.